What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? Travis from AmericanTrucks.com, and today we're checking out BBK's 90mm throttle body upgrade designed for your 15 to 17 5-liter powered F150. Now, there are a few different throttle bodies that you can pick up on this site, and this one is going to be the most expensive at around the $550 price point, but more importantly, it's going to be the biggest available option that you can throw under the hood. So why would you want the biggest one? Well, simple logic says that more air going into the intake manifold obviously makes its way into the combustion cylinder. You get a better compression stroke, you get a better air and fuel mixture, and overall you make more horsepower and torque, especially on the bottom end. And that's really nice because BBK says that you don't actually have to tune your truck once you install this throttle body. Now, keep in mind that is only going to hold true if your truck is mostly stock. Now, if you do have other mods currently installed, maybe you got something like a cold air intake, maybe you got a throttle body spacer that's already installed, maybe a new intake manifold, maybe you have a tune on the truck already, this thing's going to take advantage of that. But if you don't already have a tune, you have some other mods installed, just keep in mind you might run into a lean out situation, in which case you will have to get a tune in order to correct your air and fuel mixtures. Not a huge deal, and even then you will get more power and performance out of your truck again. Now, what kind of performance can you get without a tune? If your truck's mostly stock, guys, I'd go ahead and say you'll probably get maybe high single digit, maybe low double digit gains, again, applicable for both horsepower and torque, and obviously throw a tune other mods on there, that number is only going to continue to climb. Now, one other thing to think of, guys, if your truck is stock and you do have a factory intake, just know that your factory intake tube will unfortunately not fit correctly over the new openings. Just simple logic, right? Smaller intake tube designed for a smaller factory throttle body. You will have to buy a rubber adapter in order to mate the factory intake tube to the new throttle body. They're pretty easy to find online. They only cost a couple bucks, so not a huge deal. Just keep that in mind if you decide to stick with this option over any of the other ones. And if you do, you can actually come back in a little bit. I'm going to show you guys how to get this thing bolted on. It's an incredibly simple job, guys. I would actually recommend this as a good first mod if you're just getting into the world of actually modifying your truck. You don't have a lot of experience. This is incredibly simple. Shouldn't take us more than an hour. So for that reason, I'm going to go ahead and give this thing a soft 1 out of 3 wrenches on the old difficulty meter. So check it out a little bit more, come back in a little bit, and I'll show you how to get that install done. All right, before we install our throttle body, you'll need some standard drive ratchets. You'll also need a 7 and 8mm socket. Those can both be shallow sockets. If you're going to use an impact gun like me, you'll probably need an impact swivel socket. It's a little bit of a tight fit. And not pictured, you'll also need an adapter for the new throttle body if you're using the factory intake tube. Okay, before we actually go to remove our throttle body, obviously we have to make room here, so we're going to disconnect our factory intake tube and remove it from our engine bay. So we're going to loosen up this clamp here, securing it to the throttle body, and you'll need a 7mm socket for this one. Once you've loosened up that clamp, just go ahead and gently pull on the intake tube and unseat it from the throttle body. Okay, now we need to disconnect these breather hoses on the intake tube here. You can see this one that I have my hand on currently has a little gray lock ring. So on the bottom, just gotta kind of feel for that little tab. Just pull on it with your finger. You can actually unslip it. You'll do the same thing for the other one, except this one you're just gonna kind of yank on it gently to remove it from the intake tube. Okay, then we just have one more clamp to take care of here. This is securing the intake tube to our air box. Same 7mm socket. Once you've loosened up that clamp, go ahead and unseat the intake tube by pulling on it a little bit and kind of wiggling it around. Then you can remove the intake tube from the engine bay. Just make sure you're not pulling on this crossover line here, this coolant line, too much. Okay, now we're ready to start removing our throttle body. Before we actually remove it from the intake manifold, we have to disconnect our electrical connection here for the motor. It's got a little red locking tab on it, so just pull that little red tab out. A little flathead screwdriver helps. Then you also have to press down on this little black retainer here on the plug. You can see here, it's kind of a squeeze. So press down on that black retainer and then unseat the clip, move it out of the way. Okay, now we're ready to finally remove the throttle body. It's secured using 4 bolts here. You'll need an 8mm socket to remove these bolts. All right, guys, we got the factory throttle body removed. Before we throw the new one in the truck, I wanted to give you a quick little side-by-side comparison here, really show you some of the differences between the two, because at first glance they do look very similar, but the BBK is a little bit different in terms of its overall fit and finish, besides the fact that we're just going with that larger diameter to get better airflow. One of the things that jumped out when I opened it right out of the box here, they have a way nicer finish on the actual body of the throttle body itself. It looks like a nice little kind of a hammer tone finish on here. Almost looks forged, even though it's cast aluminum. It's factory grade cast aluminum, by the way. You don't got to worry about that rust or corrosion or anything like that. But the factory throttle bodies are a little bit messy in their overall finish. You can see some of the seams and marks on there where they actually cast them. So they actually took the time to kind of give this a nice finish. They also put a nice little engraving on the side here, a little BBK logo, so that looks really cool. We are using a factory motor. That's really important. These things, compatibility issues can become a concern with aftermarket motors. This thing operates on very specific voltages because it's not a drive-by-wire truck. It's actually all electronic. So the way that the throttle body opens is determined by throttle position and the voltage going to this motor. So we really want to make sure that that thing's going to be operating, especially under those high temp conditions. Full disclosure, I do have a BBK in my vehicle. I've ran one just like this for a long period of time. Haven't had any problems with that, again, thanks to that factory motor. So where it counts, they did not change anything up. They only made some nice improvements here. Now we are using new hardware, by the way. We have this cool little spacer here with a new O-ring on there. And we also do have new bolts that we're going to be using to install the throttle body. Because the body is a little bit bigger than the factory one, we're not going to be able to use our factory bolts, and these actually aren't even long enough. So go ahead and set those aside, put them in a box, do whatever with them. We're not going to be needing those. So go ahead and grab the new throttle body, grab that spacer with the bolts. You'll also need the appropriate sized Allen key. So let's go ahead and show you guys how to get this thing bolted in. All right, so before we throw the new throttle body in place, you want to do a couple checks and balances first. It's actually a good opportunity to kind of check the overall health of the intake system here, kind of check around inside the manifold and feel around here. If you're getting excessive blow-by through the crankcase, through these breather hoses, then you'll actually see a buildup of carbon in here, in which case you should kind of clean that out a little bit. That may be indicative of some deeper issues. But as long as everything's looking good in here, and as long as this little factory O-ring looks okay, now you can install the throttle body. But you also have to accommodate the spacer that we're going to be throwing on as well. So the metal side of the spacers are going to be resting against the intake manifold. Then we're going to throw the throttle body up in place. It's a little bit difficult trying to get all this stuff on there separately, so what I like to do is actually grab a bolt, thread the bolt through the throttle body and through the spacer, and just get one of the 4 bolts kind of hand threaded. Then we'll grab the other 3, get those in place, and then we'll tighten everything down. All right, now that we have all 4 bolts hand tight, we can go ahead and drive all of them home. And again, it's best to use just gentle hand pressure on these to get these tight, because we have those rubber O-rings in the back, and we're also threading through aluminum here. So hand tight should be sufficient for us. And now that I have all the bolts flush, I'm just going to give each one another half turn or 2. Okay, once you have all 4 bolts tightened, you can reconnect your harness. Just make sure that little red plastic locking tab is also pressed down once you have this back in place. That'll wrap up the install, and that also wraps up my review of the BBK 90mm throttle body. Be sure to check this thing more out on the site, and for all things F-150, keep it right here at AmericanTrucks.com.